09:15, December 20th, 1943. The altitude is 27,000 feet over the cold grey vacuum of the North Sea. The temperature outside the thin aluminum skin of the B-17 Flying Fortress is 60 degrees below zero. Inside, Second Lieutenant Charlie Brown, a 21-year-old pilot from West Virginia, hunches over the controls of his bomber, named Ye Olde Pub. His breath freezes instantly, clinging to the wool lining of his oxygen mask. He is flying the coffin corner position, the most exposed and dangerous spot in the entire bomber formation. This is his first mission as a command pilot. His target, Bremen, Germany. The mission is designated Operation Pig Iron. The objective is the Focke-Wulf 190 aircraft production factory. The 379th Bombardment Group is part of a massive 8th Air Force daylight raid, a blunt instrument of aerial warfare aimed at crippling the Luftwaffe's industrial heart. Brown is an engineer by training, a man who understands mechanics and stress tolerances. He knows the B-17 is a resilient machine built by Boeing to absorb punishment, but what awaits them over Bremen is not theoretical stress. It is a calculated, systematic attempt at annihilation. The German defenses are the most formidable in the world. He glances at his co-pilot, Second Lieutenant Spencer Pinky Luke. They exchange no words. There is nothing to say. Below them, the Norden bomb site, the Allies' most secret piece of technology, remains covered by a canvas shroud. It is the responsibility of the bombardier, Second Lieutenant Al-Doc Sadok, to protect it. If the plane goes down, he is under orders to destroy it with a thermite charge. The assumption is that capture is inevitable, that failure is statistically probable. The air is thin and metallic. The only sound is the deafening, monotonous drone of the 4 Wright Cyclone engines, a noise so pervasive it ceases to be sound and becomes a physical pressure. The formation is tight, wingtips mere feet apart, a defensive combat box designed for mutual protection. Brown's hands, double-gloved, are already numb on the yoke. He is not thinking of victory. He is thinking of navigation points, fuel consumption, and the simple, desperate task of holding formation. On his knee pad, a simple calculation is scrawled. The math is simple. The reality is not. The unresolved problem is the 400 miles of hostile air between his aircraft and home. They cross the German coast, and the sky changes. The serene, frozen blue is suddenly punctuated by dark grey and black puffs of smoke. Flak. The German anti-aircraft gunners are accurate. They are firing box patterns, pre-calculated cubes of airspace where the bombers must fly. The plane is rocked by concussive blasts that drum against the fuselage like giant invisible fists. Brown fights the yoke, the plane lurching violently. A metallic shriek tears through the aircraft. The plexiglass nose cone, where the bombardier and navigator sit, shatters, exploding inward. The internal intercom erupts in screams. The temperature inside the nose compartment plunges instantly to 60 below. Brown feels the sluggish response from his controls. A shell has torn through the starboard wing, hitting the number 2 engine and damaging number 4. Number 2 is on fire. He cuts the fuel, hits the extinguisher. The fire dies, but the engine is gone. The B-17 begins to fall out of the formation. It is a straggler. And a straggler. In the skies over Germany in 1943 is a dead plane. The true mystery is not what hit them, but why they are still airborne. The radio operator, S. Sergeant Sam Blackie Blackford, reports his leg is badly wounded. The oxygen system in the rear of the plane is gone. The waist gunners are unconscious from hypoxia. Brown dives the plane, desperate to get to a lower altitude where they can breathe, but he knows it is a fatal decision. It separates them from the bomber stream completely. The intercom call he dreads comes next. It is from the top turret gunner. The tail gun, the plane's primary defense, is silent. The gunner, Sergeant Alex Yellis, is gone. His entire compartment has been destroyed by a direct flak hit. What Brown and his crew did not know, what they could not possibly comprehend, was that this descent into mechanical and human ruin was the prelude to an event that would defy every rule of war, an encounter so strange it would be buried in classified files for nearly half a century. The strategic problem facing the 8th Air Force in late 1943 was one of simple, brutal mathematics. The bomber mafia theory, which held that tightly packed formations of self-defending B-17s could fight their way to any target in daylight without fighter escort, was proving tragically false. The targets, like the Bremen-Fokker Wolf plant, were vital. The FW-190 was a superior fighter, shredding bomber formations, but the cost to reach those targets was unsustainable. An after-action report from the Schweinfurt-Regensburg mission just months earlier, filed under Black Thursday, detailed the losses: 60 heavy bombers and their 600 crewmen lost in a single day. The operational loss rate acceptable to planners was 4%. Missions in late 1943 were routinely seeing loss rates of 15 to 25%. The bomber crews were trapped in a war of attrition they could not win. The P-51 Mustang, the long-range escort that would eventually change the war, was not yet available in significant numbers. A War Office analysis, dated December 1943, stated, "The daylight precision bombing campaign is currently failing to achieve its primary objectives without incurring operationally prohibitive losses. German fighter defenses remain lethally effective. Crew morale is approaching a breaking point." The B-17, the Flying Fortress, was revealed to be a fortress with a critical, undefended vulnerability: its front. German pilots, trained in the 12 o'clock high attack, were vectoring in, cannons blazing, shattering the cockpits and killing the pilots. The average lifespan of a B-17 crewman in the 379th Bomb Group was 15 missions. The required tour was 25. The objective at Bremen was defended by over 300 heavy flak guns and hundreds of fighters from Jagdgeschwader 1 and Jagdgeschwader 27. When Ye Olde Pub was hit, it was not an accident. It was the calculated, engineered result of the world's most sophisticated integrated air defense system. The bomber, stripped of its formation, its defenses compromised and its speed reduced, was not just a target. It was a statistic waiting to happen. The statistics translate to human suffering. The numbing cold is the first enemy. At 20,000 feet without oxygen, consciousness lasts less than 2 minutes. The men in the rear of Ye Olde Pub were dying. Brown, wrestling the controls, sees his co-pilot Pinky slump over, his oxygen line severed by shrapnel. Brown manages to connect him to an auxiliary bottle. In the nose, Doc Sadok, the bombardier, has his leg severely wounded by shrapnel. The navigator, Lieutenant Paul Johnson, is stabilizing him. While trying to navigate home using only a simple map and dead reckoning, the sophisticated navigation aids destroyed. The aircraft is a charnel house. Hydraulic fluid, oily and pink, mixes with blood on the floor. The wind whistling through the shattered nose cone sounds like a continuous scream. The plane is barely controllable. More than half the control surfaces are gone. The rudder is jammed. Brown is flying with differential power from the remaining engines and pure physical strength. Every report from his crew confirms the impossibility. They are alone, losing altitude, and deep inside Germany. A field report from a surviving pilot of the 379th that day would later read, "Observed B-17F, serial 423167, Ye Olde Pub, received direct flak hits over target. Aircraft left formation in a controlled descent. No parachutes observed. Believed lost." The crew was written off. For the men inside the falling bomber, the world had shrunk to a single, freezing, terrifying reality. They were minutes from death. Experts, pilots, and engineers agreed. A B-17 in this condition could not fly. It couldn't be done. Miles away, on a Luftwaffe airfield near Bremen, Oberleutnant Franz Stigler sips coffee. He is 26, a veteran ace with 27 aerial victories. He is not a Nazi fanatic. He is a Bavarian, a former Lufthansa airline pilot who joined the Luftwaffe to fly, not to kill. He is a man bound by an older, almost forgotten code. His brother August was also a pilot, killed early in the war. The loss hardened Stigler, but it did not make him cruel. He is a technical master of his aircraft, the Messerschmitt Bf 109 G6. He carries the words of his former commanding officer, Gustav Rödel, as a personal creed. Rödel had once told his pilots, "You are fighter pilots first, last, always. If I ever see or hear of you shooting at a man in a parachute, I will shoot you myself. You follow the rules of war for you, not for your enemy. You fight by the rules to keep your humanity. Stigler is a knight of the air, a concept that seems antiquated, almost naive, in the brutal arithmetic of 1943. He is tired. He has already flown one mission that morning, shooting down 2 B-17s. His plane is being refueled and rearmed. The 20mm cannon pods under his wings are fully loaded. A single victory more, and he will be recommended for the Ritterkreuz, the Knight's Cross, Germany's highest military honor. The alarm sounds again. A straggler, a single American bomber, limping away from Bremen, heading for the coast. It is an easy kill, a guaranteed victory. He finishes his coffee, climbs into the cockpit and takes off. The crazy idea is not born of genius, but of conscience. Stigler ascends through the broken clouds, his supercharged Daimler-Benz engine pulling him easily toward the intercept point. He sees the bomber. It is low, slow, and alone. It is, he thinks, a Leichenwagen, a hearse. This will take seconds. He arms his cannons and machine guns. He closes to 200 meters, taking the standard rear quarter position, outside the range of the bomber's remaining guns. He looks at the B-17 and he doesn't see a machine. He sees a catastrophe. The entire tail gunner position is gone. The metal is shredded, flapping in the wind. He moves closer to the side. He can see the port waist gunner slumped, his uniform dark with blood. He flies parallel to the fuselage and looks up at the top turret. It is shattered, the gunner inside visibly wounded, unmoving. He pulls ahead level with the cockpit. He is so close he can see the pilot's face. He sees Second Lieutenant Charlie Brown fighting the controls, his eyes wide with terror and disbelief. The conflict is instantaneous. His duty is to destroy this aircraft. It is an enemy plane, a weapon of war that has just bombed his country. One more kill and he is a national hero. But his commander's words echo in his mind. You fight by the rules to keep your humanity. To shoot this plane down would not be combat. It would be shooting at men in parachutes. It would be murder. In that second, Franz Stigler makes a decision. He disarms his guns. The Knight's Cross is forgotten. His new idea is to get this ghost ship to the ground. Stigler's preparation is improvisation. He pulls his Mi-109 to within 10 feet of the B-17's wingtip. Brown and his crew are paralyzed. They assume this is a new psychological torture, the German ace toying with them before the kill. Stigler makes eye contact with Brown. He points down toward the ground. He is trying to signal them to land at a German airfield. They are so badly damaged. He believes it is their only chance. Brown, terrified and confused, can only shake his head. Stigler understands. The pilot will not surrender. He thinks for a moment. The next option is Sweden. It is neutral and closer than England. He points his aircraft north toward the Swedish coast, motioning for Brown to follow. Brown still doesn't understand. He keeps the B-17 pointed west, toward home. Stigler is exasperated, but he sees something else. Ahead of them is the German coastline and the Vlieland flak battery. It is one of the most concentrated anti-aircraft zones on the Atlantic Wall. The battery will fire on the B-17, and in its current state, it will be obliterated. A new plan forms. Stigler repositions his fighter. He flies on the B-17's left, slightly behind the cockpit. He is shielding the American bomber. He is preparing to use his own aircraft, the silhouette of a Messerschmitt, as a shield. He is escorting the enemy. He knows that if he is seen by another Luftwaffe pilot, or if the flak battery reports him, he will be arrested, court-martialed, and shot for treason. He is risking his life, his career, and his honor for an enemy he has never met. The test is the coastal flak battery. The German gunners on the ground acquire the B-17. It is low, slow, and trailing smoke, an easy, confirmed kill. But then they see the Mi-109. It is flying in close formation, almost protectively. The gunnery commander is confused. Standard procedure is to fire at the bomber regardless of the escort. But why is the escort there? Is it a captured B-17 being escorted to a German base? Is it a special mission? The confusion creates hesitation. The gunners hold their fire. Stigler's gamble works. The battery passes beneath them. They are over the North Sea. The open water is their salvation. Stigler holds formation for several more minutes, ensuring they are clear of German patrol craft. He has done all he can. He pulls his Mi-109 up, level with Brown's cockpit one last time. He looks across the few feet of empty air at the American pilot. He raises his gloved hand in a slow, formal salute. Then he banks his fighter hard to the right and disappears back toward Germany. Brown and his crew are left in stunned silence. They are alone in a plane that should not be flying, having just been spared by an enemy who should have killed them. The success is not a victory, but a reprieve. The B-17 limps across the North Sea for another 2 hours. Brown finally makes landfall at RAF Seething, the base of the 448th Bomb Group. He lands the plane, one engine dead, one failing, the hydraulics gone. The moment the wheels touch down, the landing gear on the right side collapses. The B-17 slews off the runway and comes to a halt. The crew pours out, kissing the English mud. They are the only crew from their squadron to return that day. If stories like this, where humanity defies the logic of war, fascinate you, stay with us. The next chapter of this impossible event is where the true battle began. Charlie Brown is taken to the debriefing hut. He is pumped full of adrenaline, shock, and gratitude. He sits before an intelligence officer and recounts the mission, sparing no detail. He describes the flak, the damaged engines, the wounded crew, the dead tail gunner. And then he describes the Me-109. He describes how the German pilot flew alongside them, how he motioned to them, and how he saluted before leaving. The room grows cold. The intelligence officer, a major from the War Office, listens intently. When Brown is finished, the officer closes his notebook. "Lieutenant," he says, his voice flat, "you will not repeat this story. To anyone. You will not file it in your after-action report. You will not discuss it with your crew. Am I clear?" Brown is stunned. "But sir, he saved us." The officer leans in. "The official report will state that your aircraft sustained heavy damage and returned to base, that is all. The confrontation is not with the enemy, but with his own command. The Allied High Command cannot and will not allow a story of a good German to circulate. It is 1943. The war effort is built on the narrative of absolute good versus absolute evil. A story of chivalry from a Luftwaffe ace complicates that narrative. It is bad for morale. It is, in their eyes, enemy propaganda. Brown, threatened with a court-martial, is silenced. Meanwhile, Franz Stiegler lands back at his base. His ground crew is surprised. His guns are unfired. "What happened, Oberleutnant?" Stiegler climbs out of his cockpit. He is shaking. He knows he cannot tell the truth. To admit he let an enemy bomber escape is treason. He walks to the reporting office and files his report. Engaged 1 B-17, heavily damaged, observed it crash into the North Sea. He has lied to his own command, sacrificing his 28th victory and his Knight's Cross to save his own life, and to protect the memory of the men he spared. The real test of Stiegler's idea was not in the skies over Bremen, but in the silence that followed. The impact of that day was not recorded in any field manual or engineering report. It was a secret held by two men, separated by a war. Charlie Brown completed his 28-mission tour. He flew on D-Day and eventually returned home to West Virginia, where he went to college and worked for the State Department. But for 40 years, he was haunted by the face of the German pilot. He was treated for post-traumatic stress, the unreality of the event, and the order to silence it, leaving a deep psychological scar. Franz Stiegler's war continued. He was transferred to the defense of Germany, then to North Africa, and finally back to Germany, where he became one of the first pilots to fly the Messerschmitt Me-262, the world's first operational jet fighter. He flew over 480 combat missions and ended the war with 28 confirmed victories, though he never received the Knight's Cross. He survived the war against all odds. After the war, Stiegler found it impossible to live in a divided Germany. His old life as a pilot was gone. In 1953, he emigrated to Vancouver, Canada. He became a successful and quiet businessman, building a new life. He never spoke of the B-17 over Bremen. It was a private memory, a moment of honor that he believed had died with the war. The proof of his act was his own survival, and the silence of the American pilot he assumed had been shot down minutes after he left. The historical consequence of December 20th, 1943, was delayed for 4 decades. The immediate outcome was silence. The event was buried in the classified archives of the USAAF and the Luftwaffe. But in 1986, Charlie Brown, now retired, attended a reunion of his bomb group. He began to speak about the incident tentatively at first. He needed validation. He needed to know if he was crazy. He decided to find the pilot. His search lasted 4 years. He wrote to historical societies and veterans groups across Germany. He received no answers. Finally, in 1990, he placed an advertisement in a newsletter for former Luftwaffe pilots, circulated in Canada. The ad was simple. "I am searching for the pilot who, on December 20, 1943, spared my B-17 and escorted me to the North Sea." Weeks later, a letter arrived at Brown's home. It was from Franz Stigler. "I was that pilot," it began. Stigler had seen the ad and for the first time realized the bomber had made it home. The two men spoke on the phone. It was an emotional torrent, a release of 50 years of tension. Stigler described his plane, his commander, and his decision. Brown described the terror in the cockpit. They had found each other. They met in person in the lobby of a Florida hotel. The two old men, a German ace and an American bomber pilot, embraced. They wept. They were, they would later say, brothers. Their friendship, which lasted until their deaths in 2008, became a powerful testament to their shared moment. This was not an innovation of steel or circuitry. It was an innovation of the human spirit. The event over Bremen was a throwback to an older code, the Code of the Knight of the Air, which was thought to have perished in the mud of the First World War. It reminds us that technology, strategy, and politics are all secondary to the human choices made by the individuals inside the machines. That day, Franz Stigler chose his humanity over his duty. This single act of defiance against the brutal logic of total war finds echoes in modern conflicts. In an age of beyond visual range missiles and automated drone warfare, the man in the loop remains the final moral arbiter. The Stigler-Brown incident is now taught as a case study in military ethics at Air Force academies, a reminder that honor is not an abstract concept, but a decision made in a fraction of a second, under extreme pressure, with life and death in the balance. The B-17, Ye Old Pub, was scrapped. Stigler's Me-109 was likely destroyed on a German airfield. But the story remains, a silent witness to the fact that even in the heart of the inferno, decency can survive. The true legacy is not in the metal, but in the memory. Every great idea begins as an act of defiance against impossibility. For Charlie Brown, the impossibility was survival. For Franz Stigler, it was a choice that seemed to defy the very nature of war. What impossible ideas do you think could change the world?